This is SKIM. I'm Scott.
I'm Kim.
And we've been getting some questions, and we thought we'd take a few minutes, make a video, and answer them. So, question number one
is how to make time for yourself when you have kids. So it's a really
and that could be taken two ways. When you're talking about making time for yourself as an individual, or taking time as a couple. How do you make time so that you have time as a couple? So we're going to kind of take a look at that both ways, and Kim's going to go into some stuff. Go ahead, hit it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to encourage you guys because I know this is probably a really hard season, and I remember it, when I was a young mom and didn't have a whole lot of help, but this season's only for temporary. It's not going to last forever, so I just want to encourage you guys on that.
It goes by quicker than you'd think.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're in it, it's like you can't see past it, but you'll blink your eyes and your kids will be learning how to drive, trust me.
Or be like us, where our kids are, grown and out of the house, so living their own lives. I first want to talk about self-care. It's very important that you do take care of yourself because you can't lead anybody where you're not at. So, you have to be able to minister to other people out of the overflow, or else you'll be, burned out and stressed.
Yeah, it won't be sustainable if you're not getting the rest and the relaxation that you need yourself.
In Matthew 22, 37 through 40, Jesus answered and said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important commandment. The second most important commandment is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. The whole law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets depend on these two commandments." So again, I always had a hard time because all growing up, I was always told not to be selfish, not to be self-centered, always think of other people. And I think because I didn't understand this Bible verse completely, I definitely neglected myself a lot. So I wanted to kind of just talk about there's differences between self-care and like self-centeredness or self-indulgence. And I know the Bible talks a lot about, people being lovers of themselves. So we definitely don't want to be like that. But there is definitely a point of taking care of yourself so that you therefore can minister to other people. Okay?
Yeah.
So self-care, basically it helps us to be healthy and function at our best or at our highest level. And it's not just for ourselves, it's for God and for others. So the areas of it could be physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, social, and even professional. But self-centeredness or self-indulgence is usually a short-term fix, and it doesn't really provide real solutions to what's going on in your life. It can, be it fun at first, like for instance, you have a hard day at work, you come home and you think, oh, let me get a drink. And at first, it kind of calms you down, it kind of makes you feel good. But eventually, if you don't kind of control that or watch where it goes,
that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it can become addictive, and then before you know it, you could be, an alcoholic. So, or even eating junk food. Like there was times in my life where
comfort food,
where I, ate a whole tub of ice cream because I was depressed. So that's not going to be good. So again, it's important. Self-care
is not being self-indulgent.
It's not being self-indulgent, yeah. But healthy self-care is important to model because your children are watching you, and they're watching your every move. They're like sponges, and if they see you coming home and they're, they see you drinking to calm yourself down.
If you hit the table, it shakes.
Oh, well.
So just so you know.
Or if they see you binge watching, Netflix for the next 24,
48 hours.
That's how they're going to learn how to, take care of themselves. They're going to think that's healthy. Yeah. So the other thing I did want to remind everyone, and I know this might not seem like it has anything to do with the question, which is how to make time for yourself when you have kids, but you got to remember first and foremost what your identity is, and that is that you are a child of God. You are unique. He has given you characteristics and talents and abilities. And so I think a lot of times we get confused with who we are, our identity, and our roles. Like a lot of times, you know, we tend to think of ourselves as just a mom or just a wife or just a husband or a dad, but we don't actually think about who we are as an individual. And we might kind of get lost in that. So that's another thing that you kind of have to look out for. I know, like for you, you kind of expressed that you used to get lost in your work and just your identity. Yeah,
because that's how I tried to make myself feel better by working really hard, by being a good provider, having enough money. You know, I always kind of was trying to build a foundation of self-reliance on that, and I became a workaholic. And I guess what we're trying to say is we have to be careful when it comes to self-care, that we're self-evaluating and we're not doing things that really aren't sustainable and long-term healthy. You know, we have to make sure that we're balancing that with enough rest, relaxation, and actually being strategic, especially during that time of life when we have young kids and it seems like our lives just go berserk. You know, that's really important.
And that's what I was going to talk about next is, you know, consistency and scheduling a routine is crucial. It's going to be your best friend when it comes to self-care because you have to schedule it in. Otherwise, it won't get done. And it may seem harder to implement at first, but once you start, you know, doing it, you're going to really appreciate the fact that you scheduled it.
Yeah, and the idea of writing it down is so important. Like people say, well, why do I have to write it down? Why do I have to keep a calendar? And one of the things I like to say is, you know, an idea in your head is a dream, but an idea on paper is a plan. So the idea of writing it down kind of secures it in your memory, and then it's something you can refer back to, so it reminds you so that you stay on task.
Yeah, and also consistency is so important because it gives security, it gives stability, it gives a sense of peace to yourself. And if you don't have consistency, if you don't schedule, you're going to have a haphazard life where you're just basically, life is just going to happen. And what's the saying? I always get sayings wrong, but it's basically, if you don't know where you're going, then any bus will do. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. If you don't know where you're going, just jump on any bus. That'll do. And that's what happens in life, is life actually is happening to you instead of you happening to life, you know. And we take control of that aspect through scheduling. Yeah. And writing it down.
So scheduling a family meeting is how we do it. We sit down once a week and we get our agenda book and we might use our Google Calendar. And I've been told to write down pencil because things change. But you know, the thing too is it's not just about getting like things done and checked off, but it also could be the Holy Spirit is important to ask when you are having these meetings. Invite him into the meeting. Ask him, what is it that he wants done for this week? You know, whether it's a character that needs to be built up in you or, you know, maybe going to help somebody. But again, I think we get so busy with our goals and our agendas that we a lot of times forget to ask and invite the Holy Spirit. The next thing is time management, which kind of goes along with the scheduling. Time management is important, and a couple of the ways that you can help with time management so that you can get to taking care of yourself properly is, you know, for the moms who are making meals, instead of trying to make, you know, a 7-course meal, you know, this might be a season in your life where you make a 1-pot meal. You know, utilize the instant cooker or whatever it's called. Instapot, yeah.
It's your friend.
Yeah, it's your friend. Or, you know, meal prepping. I know you guys have all heard about meal prepping. And
the air fryer.
Yes, we love the air fryer. Yes, our daughter turned us on to that, and we were skeptical at first, but we really love it.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So, you know, meal prep, you know, maybe take one day out of the week where you work together and you think of some recipes that you're going to put together. Also, clean up as a family. That's one thing that we learned later on in our marriage, and I wish we would have done it from the get-go. But, you know, even though, yes, the mom is a stay-at-home mom and that's her job, but there's no reason why the family at the end of the day can't just jump in and
I'm gonna move a little closer.
can't jump in and just help, because before you know it, within like 10 minutes, you're done.
Yeah.
And then she's not sitting there, you know, still cleaning after, you know, working all day around the house.
Right. And that's the whole thing, is if we're not being selfish, like as the husband, I know historically it was a big thing just to come home, kick the shoes off, go to the easy chair, and your day is over. And that's not really fair, because she's been working all day with the kids. And so I think the idea of working together as a team, especially during dinner cleanup, you know, give your kids age-appropriate chores. Get them started young with giving them the sponge and having them, you know, wiping down the table or the counter. Maybe as they get a little bit older, you know, mom's washing, one of the kids is drying, one of the kids is putting them away. Again, this is once the kids get a little older, and it can be age-appropriate. But I know now that we have implemented that. It's so much more fair. It gets done very quickly, and that opens up time then for other important things when everyone's sharing the burden. You know, the old saying, many hands make light work. So being able to distribute it like that's very, very important, and it teaches your kids that they're a welcome part of the family, but that you're not their slave.
Yes. So going into self-care, it's not a one-size-fits-all formula. You know, you're going to have to figure out how much time you need individually and together as a couple, and what would refresh you, you know, and it's going to look different for everybody. Like some people, they might need to take a walk outside, or for another person, it could be talking to a loved one. So again, you kind of have to think through, you know, what does that look like for you and for your marriage. Also, planning it out. Again, the whole scheduling thing. Plan it out with your spouse. Sit down at your family meeting and talk about and say, what does this look like? What does this realistically look like for us individually and as a couple? And then you put it on the schedule, you know, and that's where if you don't put it on the schedule, it will not happen. We have found that to be so true. If we don't, unfortunately, we're so busy with everything that's going on today, just have to put it on the schedule. And so a couple of the ways that you can achieve this, first of all, we learned this a while back. It's called couch time. And basically the first like 20 minutes that your husband comes home from work, you know, you guys sit on the couch, you put your kids, you know, in their room, and you talk to them and tell them ahead of time that they're going to have to play quietly, because for the next 20 minutes, it's going to be your time together. And you can get a timer, and that way they know this isn't like an endless thing. But, you know, once the timer goes off, then they'll know it's back to family time. But this is a time where, you know, wives, don't try to like tell your husband every horrible thing that has happened. Let this be a good time. Let this
like
be
a refreshing time.
Yeah, where you just tell him that you miss him and that you love him, and
if that's true.
Well, hopefully that's true. So again, couch time, and we can talk further about that.
Yeah, and understand that obviously, if your kids aren't trained, then that's going to have to be a part of the training. It'll start with 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and even if you have a toddler, you know, you can put a little blanket on the floor, and that's quiet time blanket, and they have to sit on that blanket with a quiet toy, and you literally might have to start with 3 minutes, and then you'll build that up over time to where they can say, and you might say, oh, that's impossible. That is not impossible, but it is a part of training. So if you want a self-care and the ability to rest and, you know, grab that time with your husband, that's going to take training and consistency. But you got to start somewhere. Again,
the consistency, it seems harder at first, but again, you're going to appreciate it so much that you follow through with it. Another way to achieve self-care and self-time for yourself is put your children to bed earlier. I actually was reading several articles where it was saying how children are sleep deprived. They're not getting enough sleep. So this is definitely going to be better for them, you know, even to start winding down and having like a quiet time for maybe like 30 minutes beforehand, before this bedtime, maybe you sit down with them, you have your Bible time, you have maybe a story time, just something where it's quiet and calming, dim the light a little bit. Get them in that mode, they've brushed their teeth, they're in their pajamas, kind of like a routine, and then tell them, okay, after this 30 minutes of reading, we're going to put you to bed now, it's bedtime. And then you guys take that time to either
unwind relax, sit, talk, do those things that, give you a chance to unwind and recoup. Yeah.
And then another thing is during the daytime, like for moms, I know, again, the schedule can be very busy, but take your timer out and just set it for 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, or like Scott, you were saying 5 minutes, in the very beginning. But just start talking to your kids and saying, okay, we're going to have quiet time. So you can pick a book to read, you can draw. There are different ideas that you can come up with, different activities ahead of time that you can set aside just for this quiet time, like playing with Play-Doh or playing with magnets or building or, Legos.
Whatever.
Something that's quiet, and they know it's designated only for this time. Don't let them play with this stuff other times, because then it won't be special.
And again, this is going to be very difficult in the beginning. If you've got a 1-year-old who has no self-control and has not been trained, it's going to be very difficult for you in the beginning. But if you get that little blanket, that's the quiet time blanket, and put them on that blanket. Our neighbor has a very loud truck there. I don't know if you just heard that. But if you put them on that blanket, at first you're going to be in a battle because they're untrained and they have no self-control. But I'm using the word self-control strategically here because that's exactly what you want to train your children in, is how to control themselves, and for them to know that there's going to be times in their lives where they're going to have to sit still and be quiet. This is going to help them when they grow to be very productive adults in the system of life that we belong to, whether it's later going to school, college, being productive at work. You've got to be able to control yourself. You can't just do what you want when you want to. And that starts literally at 1 year old and before, when you do it right.
Yeah, and I was going to say it also encourages independent play so that they're not constantly looking to the parent to entertain them. There's, back when in the 80s, our parents just said, go out and ride your bike and don't come back till it's dark.
Go outside and play.
Things have changed drastically, but again, there's that, the idea of them being able to self-entertain and not always looking to the parent to be the playmate. So that it causes independence. Yeah. Also, okay, so if you're planning on individual time and you don't know how to do that, maybe ask some trusted friends. Would you want to share, watching my kid one day and then I'll watch your children, or however way you come up with it. That's one way to do that. Also, you could switch off with your spouse. Like, for instance, if you want to work out at the gym, and you both want to work out at the gym, so you go for the first hour and then you come home and you switch off with your husband, or vice versa. So, thinking through that way with your spouse, like how can you do it? And if you're lucky enough to have your parents around, obviously you can ask them. And if it's for a couple's date, switch off with another couple. Same idea. Everybody needs to have babysitters, and it's good to kind of have like almost like a network of parents that you can kind of work with on that. And worst case scenario is save up some money to invest in your relationship, because it's super important, and get a babysitter. Again, it's funny in the book of the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 15, it says, catch all the foxes, those little foxes, before they ruin the vineyard of love, for the grapevine is blossoming. So again, Song of Solomon, we know that as the book of love, and I think it's great advice, that it's talking about there's these little foxes that will creep into your marriage. And some of them are your children. Some of them are work. And
foxes are so cute.
They are
look
cute.
at that little fox. It's so cute.
Yeah. And before you know it, they're eating all the grapes.
They're eating the grapes, man.
So again, you have to kind of be proactive and kind of look and see. Because again, I know a lot of times we forget, but it's really, the family consists of the husband and wife. It's not the children. It's not a children-centered family. Children are welcomed additions. They're a part of the family, but they are not the family. It's the husband and wife. So I think a lot of times we have a tendency to forget that.
Because if the husband and wife are not healthy, then the whole system, the whole family's not healthy. So it's so important that, you know, the husband and wife invest in their relationship so that it's as good as it can be, because the children, they're going to respond to that.
Well, and the other thing too is, you know, I've heard some, and I know of many couples where they put all their effort into their children. The children grow up, they move away, and it's like now it's the two of them, and they look at each other and they don't even know who each other is.
Yeah,
you know, they don't.
like...
So again, hopefully you're going to be with each other for the rest of your life, and so you want to continue to build that friendship.
Yeah.
You know, all along consistently. Okay, and the other thing is, if you don't have the ability to trade babysitting with other friends or family, then you might have to change your schedule. You might have to either get up early, God forbid, or you might have to go to bed later. And, you know, again, putting your children to sleep sooner and to bed sooner
is probably going to help.
It's going to be very helpful, you know. So, again, you might have to be a little bit creative with your schedule. And at first, again, I want to say that once you start implementing this, it's going to be a new thing. You know, even your kids, your spouse, you are going to probably not be comfortable at first. It's going to feel weird because you're not used to doing this.
No, it's not natural.
But
it's going to require a lot of training for you and your children, everyone around you. You're changing the way you do business.
Yeah.
So you're literally...
You're going to expect resistance.
Expect resistance. It's going to be more difficult at first, and then as you do it and implement it and become more consistent, you're going to find that the ease of use, if you will get better. It's like anything. If you're out of shape and you start working out, after that first, you start running.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I mean, you take 5 steps out the door, you're going to feel like you're dying.
Right.
Well, why? Because you're just completely out of shape, and this is something new. You're going to come against those same struggles. So we would encourage you, expect that. That's the expectation, that this will be difficult at first, and then as you do it, it'll be easier and easier as you go. And
again, it's communication. You know, reassure them that you love them, that you care for them, but this is also very important, and why it's important. The other thing I just want to remind you guys too is when you are with your kids, to be present and to be mindful. So, I think that will take some of the maybe the awkwardness of it when you start implementing it, because the thing is, if the kids see you attentive to them and they know that you're listening to them, they're not going to be as needy when it comes to your time. You know what I mean? So again, it's like when they're talking to you, when it's their time, and really pay attention, really, be into
respond.
Don't kind of half listen, because then they notice that. So again, it's I don't know if you have any more to say about that, but it's like showing quality attention.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the things I struggle with most is I don't multitask well anyway. So I would find myself like, even I would be at the dinner table and I'm quiet and I'm eating, but my mind's still on work. My mind's still on a million other things. So while I was at the table with the kids or with my wife, I'm still not there. I'm literally physically there, but I'm mentally not there. So I think what we're trying to say is when you are with your children, be present with them, be engaged with them, be focused on them, so that when it does come time to do the quiet time and to do these things, it's not like this abrupt thing where they just completely feel a lack of connection with you.
Right.
And it will it'll be a lot more fair, if you will.
So hopefully that answered your question, which was originally how to make time for yourself when you have kids.
Yes. So hope that helps you guys. Put your questions and additional comments in down below. And if you have additional questions, put those down, and maybe that will be a future video.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Have a great day.